Hey there and welcome. When it comes to any project, big or small, success almost always boils down to one thing: people. It's all about figuring out who they are, what they want, and, crucially, how to get them on board with your vision. That, my friends, is the heart of stakeholder analysis. And today, we're going to break down the exact framework that separates the projects that soar from the ones that sink. Let's dive in.
Here's our game plan. We'll kick things off with why this is so incredibly important. Then, we'll walk through a really solid 4-step process: finding your stakeholders, prioritizing them, understanding what they need, and finally, managing their engagement. We'll wrap it all up with the key benefits you can expect. Think of this as your roadmap to mastering the process.
All right, first things first, the stakeholder imperative. Why does this deserve our full attention right at the start? Well, because getting this wrong isn't just some small mistake. It's honestly one of the biggest reasons projects fail, period.
So let me ask you this. Think back on some major projects you've seen, maybe at work or in the news, that just fizzled out. What's that one core reason, that central problem that causes so many of them to completely miss the mark?
The answer, almost every single time, comes back to the people. It's that simple. If your stakeholders, the people affected by the change, don't want to engage or refuse to accept it, your project is in serious trouble. That's why stakeholder analysis is never just a nice-to-have. It is an absolutely foundational part of any project management framework. If you're studying for a certification, this is a must-know.
Okay, so that leads us perfectly into our first step, identification. You can't manage or influence anyone if you don't even know who they are, right? So let's figure out the who.
The official definition is super broad, and that's on purpose. A stakeholder is literally any individual or group who is either affected by your project or has some influence over it. We're talking everyone from the C-suite and the project sponsor all the way to the end users and even your suppliers.
So the key in this first step is to just cast a really wide net. Don't worry about being precise yet. Just brainstorm and create the most complete list you possibly can. We can always trim it down later, but starting big ensures you don't accidentally forget someone critical early on. Trust me, that's a mistake you don't want to make.
All right, so you've got this massive list of people. You're probably looking at it and thinking, there is no way I can give all of these people the same amount of attention. And you're right. That brings us to step 2, prioritization. This is all about being strategic and figuring out where your energy will have the most impact.
And this tool right here is an absolute lifesaver for doing just that. It's the Power/Interest Grid. It's a classic for a reason. It's so simple yet so effective. You just map out every stakeholder based on 2 simple things: how much power or influence they have over the project and how much interest they have in its success.
Now let's break down what each quadrant means for you. Anyone in that high power/high interest box? You need to manage them closely. Think of them as partners. Their support is non-negotiable. Now for high-power/low interest folks, like maybe a functional leader, your job is to keep them satisfied. Give them the highlights, but don't bog them down. The low-power/high interest group are your potential champions. Keep them in the loop, and they can build incredible support from the ground up. And finally, the low-power/low interest group, you just monitor them with minimal effort, making sure they don't suddenly become a bigger issue.
Okay, on to step 3. You've identified everyone, you've prioritized them, so now you know who you need to talk to. The next logical step is to figure out what they actually care about. This is where we move past our assumptions and really dig into their true motivations and concerns.
But how do you actually do that? How do you get beyond the polite surface-level answers to find out what your key stakeholders are really thinking and what they truly need from this whole thing?
Well, there are 2 main ways to go about it. First, and most obviously, is to just ask them. And then you have to actively listen. Get into real, open conversations. The second tool in your kit is something like a questionnaire. This can be a game changer, especially in situations where trust is a bit shaky. Anonymity gives people the safety to be brutally honest.
And when you're having those conversations, how you listen changes everything. You have to go in with the goal of understanding, not just responding. That means asking for their thoughts, not getting defensive, and genuinely trying to see things from their perspective. The second you start arguing or dismissing their concerns, you've lost. You've shut down the conversation and damaged that trust.
This all leads us to the final and maybe most important step: managing engagement. This is where the rubber meets the road. It's not just about listening to people, it's about actively managing their attitudes, and yes, dealing with resistance when it inevitably pops up.
I bet you've heard this one before, right? We tried something like this a year ago and it didn't work. Or how about, are we sure this is a good idea? It feels like it's just going to create more work for us. These sound like simple questions, but they're often hiding something else.
You've got to learn to hear these for what they truly are: thinly veiled resistance. Now, your first gut reaction might be to jump in and defend the project, but a savvy change manager sees this as a golden opportunity. It's a chance to pull that reluctance out into the open and address it head-on.
And look, the choice here couldn't be clearer. When you confront resistance in a constructive way, it becomes a building block for genuine engagement. It actually fosters cooperation. But if you ignore it, well, you're just building a foundation for disappointment, more resistance, and ultimately, project failure. Now, if you want a more structured way to do this, there are amazing models out there. The CODA model is about building a powerful coalition to champion the change. But for managing individuals, the ADKR model is an absolute must-know. ADKR is an acronym that spells out the 5 things an individual needs for a change to be successful. They need awareness of why the change is happening, the desire to be a part of it, the knowledge of how to do it, the ability to put that knowledge into practice, and finally, reinforcement to make sure the change sticks. This gives you a repeatable playbook for guiding people through change.
So after all that, after identifying, prioritizing, understanding, and engaging, what's the big payoff? Why go through all this trouble? Why does this structured process actually work so well?
Well, the benefits are huge. Doing this right helps you see risks coming a mile away so you can deal with them before they blow up. It helps you build real ownership and commitment, which makes the actual transition so much smoother. And at the end of the day, it's about building trust and boosting morale. You're not just pushing a project through, you're building a stronger, more aligned team in the process.
So I'll leave you with a question to chew on. Thinking about whatever project is on your plate right now, who is that one stakeholder, that one person or group that you've probably been overlooking? Go find them. Applying this framework might just uncover your biggest supporter or your greatest risk.